In the last 24 hours, we've had 5 different scenarios where Islam has destroyed nativities, taken people's lives, caused major problems throughout the world. And Charlie Kirk, before he passed, had a conversation, an interview, talked about this may be one of the biggest dangers, if not the biggest dangers to American sovereignty and freedom, and also Christian and Jews movements around the world. We're going to discuss what he stated because, again, it speaks volumes of where we are at. This guy was not only smart and wise, he literally foreshadows exactly what we're dealing with right now, even when he's not even here anymore. We're going to discuss what he stated. Also, we're going to talk about the farmers and what's happening with cattle. It's amazing how we allow for our governments to make us do something to the animals, to then turn around and see that they get sick, to then turn around and completely cull the herd. We're not talking about just chickens and turkeys. We're talking about cattle. There's this farmer who was crying so much that he was bleeding from his eyes in emotion that his whole livelihood is going to be gone because of all of a sudden the government stepped in and made him do it. We're going to discuss that and why it's a big deal, because it is a global push that will continue here if we're not careful, especially if we don't win midterms and especially if we don't see some things coming out of the Trump administration. Also, we're going to discuss the ties of Susie Wiles and Pam Bondi. I mean, the reason things are not getting done, I do believe it's because of Congress and Senate. And we're going to talk about John Thune, too, some shady things that he's involved in. So we have the Chief of Staff, we have the DOJ, we have the Senate Majority Leader, all have ties to a bureaucracy and ties to Washington. How do you think Trump is actually going to get things done if all the people around him are establishment people? It's amazing how we didn't learn anything in the first Trump administration. It seems like we're not learning too much in the second Trump administration. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what J.D. Vance stated, because it goes along with what we talked about with Charlie. Something that just should give you an eerie feeling. He said, the first time I've ever seen the president, talking about Trump, surprised and taken back. And he said, not emotional, but kind of reserved. He said, just really speechless was when I mentioned this one thing. We're going to talk about all this and so much more as we jump into today's video. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new, please go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's okay, but let us know what you think about the content of today's video. Our goal is to talk about things that hopefully you can research for yourself, gain common sense and wisdom as we try to take our family through this crazy world that we live in. Man, what a crazy world. Just like the last 24 hours. I mean, we of course have civil unrest throughout the cities, dangerous, but the last 24 hours we've realized, 2 nativities burned down. We've seen, Hanukkah events, really risk to even being a part of these communities right now because of Muslims and Islam. And now we see the fact that this Christian was killed in a university, Brown University. This high-end Ivy League school, and all of a sudden, the one person killed is a conservative, and it was by someone who's alleged a leftist, woke ideology. What did we talk about yesterday? It all goes together. So there's a lot going on. Now let's jump into the stories of the day. First, I want to bring up what Charlie Kirk stated, and he had an interview right before he passed. And I know we've brought this up before, but I think we're not giving it enough. We're not talking about it enough. And the reason that I'm talking almost daily about this is because we don't understand the risk that we are putting our kids and grandkids in. You know what? Do I believe we'll see Islamic takeover in the next 5-10 years in America? Hopefully not. Lord have mercy. I hope not. But do I worry about my children and grandchildren? Yes, absolutely. Because the procreation of what the Muslims are doing, the fact that Christian families are not having as much kids, that automatically says that we're going to be, it's going to be a bad next few years just because of the birth rates, not including some of the terror acts and things like that that's going on. So let's keep on going with this. It says, Charlie Kirk, it says, I cannot see a single Western country that has become more Islamic and that has made it a better place to live and is happier and freer. Now, That's what Charlie was stating. He said this just days before he passed. Now, a lot of people will say, well, what about Qatar? What about United Arab Emirates? What about some of these places? Did you know that Saudi, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, along with a lot of other countries that are considered Gulf states, those areas that are now looking strong and everybody wants to move to, which is stupid because they still believe in Sharia, but they've actually said that they have distanced themselves from the Middle East situations. They've distanced themselves from Gaza. They've distanced themselves from Muslim Brotherhood. They've distanced themselves from as much as they can because they know how radicalized they are. Now, to be honest with you, they believe the same thing. But they're almost saying, look, we know the dangers. We know we're not importing these people. That's why no one's taking the Gazans in or some of these other, situations with Afghans and things like that. That's why they're sending them straight to the West, because ultimately the Gulf states and other Muslim states know how bad the situation is, and they know it's not going to get any easier if we import those people into those countries. So even their own people, even their own religious kinfolk is saying we don't want them. So what Charlie was saying is, look, every country that's become more Islamic, every country that's imported these migrants, none of them have actually come better. Listen to this word he said, and this is just huge. He said, I think it's suicidal to import millions of them to think that we can fix something that has never been fixed in thousands upon years. He says, is macro Islam compatible with Western values? Of course, it's not. There are 3 major reasons why, and he goes through a whole list of reasons, but it comes down to the spiritual war that's going on between these groups of individuals. The fact that they are sold out to the cause to ultimately not coexist, but to take over and reign and rule the world. And also that they believe that chaos brings in their Antichrist or their Christ. So you have to realize these people will never assimilate to us and understand what we as Americans want with freedom. They're not going to assimilate. So why are we importing them into our country? We talked about this in the intro, how yesterday we mentioned France is canceling New Year's Day. They've canceled Christmas already. They've canceled, the Brussels had to take down nativities. Britain has raised an Islamic flag over their church, all in the name of trying to kowtow to the Islamic faith instead of the Christian movement, which is one of the biggest times of celebration for Christians is Christmas. So we can't live in the same trajectory together and assimilate and think that we can coexist. You can't do that. And what Charlie Kirk was saying is, you can't do this. There's no such thing. There's not one other place in history that this worked, and we think it's going to work now. I mean, prime example, I want you to listen to the top 10 terror groups in the world right now, okay? Number 1 is ISIS. Number 2 is a group called Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam. There's another group, number 3, it's called the TTP, which is Tehrik Taliban Pakistan. Number 4, Al-Shabaab. Number 5, Boko Haram. Number 6, Hamas. Number 7, Hezbollah. Number 8, Taliban. Number 9, Lashkar-Taiba. Number 10 is Al-Qaeda. It says the top 10 terror groups in the world right now, based on the damage they've done to the world, is all Islam. 1 through 10 are Islamic groups. I think that proves one point, is that they cannot assimilate with Americans. Cancellation of all this stuff, cancellation of all Christian Jewish events. It's amazing. Alex Jones shared this. It says the red alert should be going off with the Trump administration, because he said the Muslim Brotherhood has ordered thousands of mosques in control of Western nations to launch a massive jihad and kill and harm Christians and Jews. This was just stated. Now we're going through the 2 most, important times of Christianity and Jewish festivities, other than, of course, Easter and Resurrection Sunday, is the birth of Christ, Christmas, and of course for Jews, Hanukkah. Now Jews need to know Christ. I'm not differentiating from that. But these 2 groups are hated by Islam. And I want you to listen to what Alex Jones said one more time. He said, the Muslim Brotherhood has ordered thousands of mosques in controls all over the world, but especially in Western nations, to launch massive jihad to kill. And that's not assimilation. That's sadness, and that's the truth that we're dealing with right now, is what Charlie was basically stating and foreshadowing, and basically not prophesying, but telling exactly what's going to take place. because of what's going on. Now, this kind of leads me to the next story because, again, I don't think we realize how valuable Charlie was. J.D. Vance came out and stated this. He said, a heartbreaking truth that I had to share. He said, the only time I've ever seen President Trump truly stunned to a point where he was almost taken back was when I had to break the news to him that Charlie Kirk had passed away and was assassinated. He said he leaned back in his chair, almost stunned or speechless, and then talked about all the hard work he did for us and for conservatives. That is just heartbreaking, but it shows again how valuable and how important Christian conservatism is to the world, truthfully. And even though a lot of people try to ruin that over the last few days, weeks, and months, ultimately, God's will take place. And we believe that good things can still come. Now, until we change people in leadership, it may not change. And it may be bad to a point where we can't fix it. This is why I hope that the Trump administration will wake up. Not only Trump administration, but Trump himself. Not because I don't like Trump, but I want you to listen to some of these connections that we should be looking out for when we hear about the stuff that's going on right now in the world. And this is, again, it goes back to the fact that this is why I believe that we can't get anything passed. I believe the infighting with the right is happening because of these few details right here. Joshua Hall shared this as breaking. Pam Bondi and Susie Wiles' swamp ties exposed. Bondi was a Pfizer shill, and Wiles was one of the most crooked, or what you'd say successful lobbyists, but we would say crooked, in the United States over the last few years. It says they are selling the president out. The 80+ million people of us who voted for the president is not getting what we wanted to because all the people in power are still basically taking advantage of him. Pam Bondi has done absolutely nothing to stop the movement of these justices, these judges, also the quote-unquote deep state and establishment that she is supposed to be arresting and also exposing not only crimes, but arresting the people for the crimes. It says Susie Wiles has held people from getting to the president and that she is upset and that he is upset that he has not gotten the talking points out that he wanted. And it feels like he is getting shafted. It may be these two people. Now, let's go to the Senate. I want you to listen about John Thune. You wonder why we haven't got appointments passed. You wonder why we haven't got anything through Congress. Well, the administration's working against him, but what about this? Senate Majority Leader John Thune is the top investor in Mitch McConnell's wife's, Elon Chow's family shipping business in communist China. It has raked in tens of millions of dollars in profits from the Chinese company during his short tenure as Senate Republican Majority Leader. He is selling us out as hostages to a foreign government for his own financial benefit. Now, do I believe that it's just John Thune? I don't. I believe that, I would say, again, this is rough estimates, this is personally my own opinion. I believe there's probably 80 to 85% of all Congress and Senate that are doing the exact same thing as what these people are. You cannot tell me, prime example with anyone else, Crenshaw, whoever you want to list in this thing, you cannot tell me that these people make $160,000 to $180,000 a year, and then within 4 to 5 to 6, 7 years, they're all multimillionaires. You know, my son always says this, the math ain't mathin'. And that's true. I know that they use Common Core math in the government now, but, 2 plus 2 still equals 4. And when you're making $160,000, and if you added all that money up over 5 years, 10 years, you're going to be looking at $500 to $1 million. Somehow everybody's walking away with 15, 20 million, 25 million. It don't matter if there's an R or D behind their name. So what I think they're doing is they're not working for the president. They're not working for you and me. They're working for themselves. And ultimately, we're the ones that are getting shafted. Prime example, the more money they spend, the more money they collect. But I want you to listen to what Warren Buffett just said. And again, it goes back to our financial problems that we're dealing with. And it all may come strictly from the fact that we have leadership that are worried about their own dollars versus you. Buffett said in a Berkshire meeting, he says, government's tendency to debase currency over time is going to happen. U.S. fiscal policy scares me. I want you to listen to what Berkshire just did with $348 billion in cash. It says they're looking at a Japanese yen position to basically hedge against the dollar collapse. This is one of the richest men and the most successful people in the actual stock market. You know who's more successful than Warren Buffett, though? And this leads to the problem here. Nancy Pelosi. She actually had a better rate than what my friend Warren Buffett had here. And Warren Buffett would be considered a Democrat, is what he always said. But ultimately what he stated was Congress and the government is the one that's been hurting us. We got to get out of the fact that think that these people are actually working for us. When you have people hedging against our own dollar because they believe that our government is leading astray, that doesn't make sense, does it? Now, another thing that I think is very dangerous is you're starting to hear China and Russia both state that America is wanting to use stable coins and tokenization to basically tokenize their debt and then basically wash it out by taking down, devaluing the stable coins. Now, it sounds cool. It sounds like, oh, we're getting rid of our debt. But really, remember, you never wash away full debt unless it's all with fake money. Well, to be honest with you, if we can wash away our debts with a stable coin or quote-unquote crypto, then that means it's fake money and it was all a farce in the first place. So what will our dollar actually be worth? It said that, and Russia stated this, and again, you can trust them or not, it just said that they believe that you're going to see the collapse of the dollar because they need it to go to stable coins and crypto to ultimately devalue their currency, but it also will devalue their debt, and it allows America to have a free, clear path to no debt. However, what it does is puts everybody on one system where it's full control, digital currencies. So is it a win-win or lose-lose, or is it the fact that no matter what we do, we're going to come out not on top like these Senate congressmen and the leaders? It seems like they're getting filthy rich while we're getting more broke. It's crazy. A story I want to talk about because it deals with our food. And I sit in a pantry just about all the time when I do filming, but I want you to listen to this study. And this came from a farmer. And again, I'm not going to share the video because he's speaking literally in French. But this man is literally crying streams of blood. And what he's saying is, he says, France farmer, blood in his eyes, protesting against his cows being slaughtered by the government. He says, look how they're treating us. They're taking it all from us. We will have nothing left. Basically, it goes back to a story that they were saying that all these animals were sick in France, so they gave them something to ultimately make it better. You know, of course, just like we were talking about this. So they're, putting junk in their food, doing MRA, making sure that they can quote-unquote heal the animal, and then all of a sudden, the animal's not healed because of the stuff they put in it, so then they just cull them. Just massively kill them all. Well, guess what happens? If you're dependent on that animal to produce milk, or beef, or chicken, or anything else, and your farm depends on that money coming in, and all of a sudden the government steps in and takes over and just kills everything, that means that person has no livelihood, right? So he can't afford the land. He can't afford any of this. And well, guess what? Who's buying all this land, even in foreign countries? The biggest players that we're the scaredest of. People like the Bill Gates and people like the global agenda pushers and the Rothschilds and BlackRock and Blackstone. We wonder what's happening. Well, we see that the private-public partnership is actually working because ultimately government shuts down and overregulates people. They lose the chance to be able to afford their things that they have, such as the livelihood, which is also our food system. And it's been because the government allowed for things to go into the food and mandated that they had to have something, and then all of a sudden when it doesn't heal them or the animals get sick, it's like, well, we'll just cull the whole farm. And then the farm loses its livelihood. This farmer, you can find it. I'm telling you, it's going viral. You can just put in there, farmer blood in his eyes. He is literally gasping for breath, upset that now the government is basically taking his farm, all because they culled his animals. His livelihood's gone. Can you imagine the government just stepping in and taking everything that you have, all in the name of, well, safety? See, that's what we're looking at. That's the foreshadowing of two different systems that we talked about. What Charlie warned us about, Islam, and also the fact of moving our dollars and cash away from something that's valuable to us, tangible, that we can hold, that we can utilize, it, that we have independence and freedom with, and putting us on a digitized currency. When people don't do what they're supposed to do in China, and they're on this digitized currency, they rate them with a social credit score of low, so they can't get a job, they can't get food, they can't even get a place to live. And so therefore people are impoverished and they're living on the streets. That's what digital currency does. You wonder what's happening in the Middle East? Well, people are getting slaughtered each and every day. That's what Islam does. The two things that we've warned about, and then all of a sudden you have a government stepping in and taking food away. This is some shady stuff, guys. And then to see that Trump could be doing a lot of great things. He came out and said that, they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled the amount of money coming in from tariffs, and that's all great. That's all wonderful. But if we have leaders like John Thune, like a lot of the Congress and Senate, even like Pam Bondi, people like Susie Wiles, who may be manipulating the president or at least abusing their powers to a point where the president can't actually get his initiative passed. What we're going to do is end up with a Democratic Congress within the year 2026 and maybe a Democrat president by 2028. And then you wonder how we're going to end up. Look at what Europe has become, Canada has become, and you wonder why Australia has these attacks, because they are pouring people across the borders. They've taken their rights away from people, and they've also put them on digital currency, so then they have to obey. They have to obey and have to abide by the government. We're seeing what is playing out around the world coming right here if we do not get our house in order. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today. Here's what I always say. No matter how grim everything looks, I tend to always say, God is in control. And if we are faithful to Him and we serve Him and we believe in Jesus, it's going to be okay. Doesn't mean it's going to make it easy, but it does mean there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Pray for our nation. It needs it. And start preparing. Put your food up. Buy things that matter. Ammo. For instance, I think that's one of the best buys you can buy. Security for your doors. Gold and silver. That's some of the best things to buy right now, because ultimately that is where we find freedom, wealth, and, to be honest with you, safety. Let me know your thoughts. God bless. Be free. Be free.